A sword comes down, and a knight falls in 2 clean pieces. You've seen it 100 times. It's one of the oldest pictures we have of the Middle Ages, and it's a lie. A real sword, swung with real force at a man in plate armor, does not cut him in half. It doesn't cut him at all. The deadliest weapon of the age couldn't beat the finest armor of the age, and that single problem shaped almost every weapon a medieval soldier ever carried. Because for most of the Middle Ages, the man in that armor was almost unbeatable. He was the closest thing the age had to a main battle tank, and the whole story of medieval weapons is one long arms race to solve him, to kill the man in steel. By about 1420, a wealthy man could be sheathed head to foot in shaped, hardened steel. A full field harness weighed somewhere around 20 to 25 kilos, roughly what a modern soldier or a firefighter carries, except it wasn't hanging off his shoulders in a pack. It was spread across his whole body, moving with him, and that undoes almost everything you think you know about it. The knight winched onto his horse by a crane? That never happened. It's a joke from a Victorian magazine that a 1944 film put on screen. A man in field armor could run, jump, and mount his horse unaided. One French marshal's biographer swears his master could turn a somersault in full harness and climb the underside of a ladder using only his hands. Allow for a proud biographer, but this was athletic equipment, made by some of the best metalworkers in Europe. It wasn't weightless. Put a man in replica armor on a treadmill, and simply moving costs him about twice the energy. But tired is not helpless, and you could not cut it. A sword edge against good plate does nothing. It skates off, which is a problem for the ranged weapon everyone remembers, the English longbow. The bows raised from the wreck of the Mary Rose pulled well over 100 pounds of draw, some past 150, and a trained archer could put 6 arrows in the air in a minute. At Crécy and at Agincourt, arrows fell like weather. So the story tells itself. A sky full of armor-piercing points, punching through French steel. Except when you actually test it, they mostly don't. Fire a heavy war bow at a properly made steel breastplate, and the arrows shatter or dent it or skid away. Most real arrowheads weren't even hardened steel. They were soft iron, and soft iron crumples on hard plate. Historians still argue the exact line, and it moves with the armor's quality, the range, the angle. But the clean version, arrows killing armored knights through the chest, is not what the evidence shows. So what actually happened at Agincourt? The French drowned in it. Rain had turned the field to deep mud, and thousands of armored men waded uphill into a narrowing gap until they were packed so tight the front ranks couldn't raise their arms. Men suffocated on their feet. Horses, shot and panicking, most of them barely armored, bolted back through their own advancing line. The arrows won that battle. They just won it a different way, by turning a proud army into a helpless crowd. Arrows killed the unarmored, the mail-clad, and above all, the horses. What they could not reliably do was kill the man in full plate, which left every commander in Europe with the same problem. How do you kill someone you can't cut and can't shoot? So nobody tried to beat the armor head-on. They went around it. Every suit of plate had gaps. It had to, so the man inside could move. The armpit, the groin, the palm of the hand, the slot in the visor, the back of the knee. That is exactly where the medieval fighting manuals tell you to aim, and they are ruthless about it. The tools they built to do it look nothing like the ones on the movie posters. Watch 2 armored knights fight in those manuals, and it is slow, close, and technical. One grips his own sword halfway up the blade, in an armored gauntlet, and uses it like a short, stiff spear, driving the point into a seam. It's called half-swording, or he flips the sword around completely, holds it by the blade, and swings the heavy steel pommel like a hammer. And when cutting is useless, you bring weapons made to crush: a mace, a war hammer with a savage backspike, the medieval can-opener, and the real king of the armored duel, the poleaxe, axe, hammer, and spike on one long haft. You don't pierce the steel with these. The blow dents it and drives the shock through, and that can crack the skull inside a helmet, or wreck a joint without ever breaking the surface, especially at the head and the limbs, where the steel is thin and the man underneath is fragile. Then you take him off his feet. Real armored combat collapses into wrestling. Trip him, throw him, pin him, and out comes the last tool, a rondel dagger, a stiff spike with a disc to brace your palm, driven through the visor slit or the armpit of a man on the ground, though very often no one died at all. A downed knight was worth a fortune in ransom, and taking him alive paid better than killing him. But the weapons people remember from all this, the ones on every book cover, the real battlefield never met. Start with the famous one. The flail, the spiked iron ball on a chain. It's in every game and every cartoon. And as a knight's weapon, it is almost certainly a myth. It appears in no medieval chronicle, no fighting manual, no Armouries inventory. The real medieval flail was a two-handed farm tool, a threshing bar bolted with iron, swung by Czech peasant infantry. The katana that slices through anything? A katana is a beautiful piece of work, but its edge is hard and brittle, and no sword on earth cuts through steel plate, European or Japanese. Smiths folded Japanese steel to burn the impurities out of poor ore. It's a brilliant solution to a problem the best European smiths didn't have. And the swords themselves were never the sharpened crowbars of legend. A one-handed sword weighed about a kilo. Even a great two-hander came in under 3. The giant ones you sometimes see in a museum were parade pieces built for show. So, if you couldn't cut the knight and couldn't shoot him, and the whole age was one long race to beat his armor, what finally ended him? A lead ball. Guns arrived, and the thickness of steel you needed to stop a bullet kept climbing, until armor was too heavy to wear and too expensive to buy. Armorers took to firing a pistol at a finished breastplate, and leaving the dent in on purpose as a guarantee. That dent is where we get the word bulletproof. But the gun was only half the story. The other half was arithmetic. You could arm 100 men with muskets for the price of one knight in steel. The knight didn't disappear overnight. Cavalry rode into the opening weeks of the First World War still wearing breastplates, and within a year, steel helmets were back on soldiers' heads in the trenches. For 300 years, nothing on a battlefield could cut the man in armor. In the end, no one had to. He wasn't beaten by a better blade. He was simply outpriced. The race he started, steel against the thing built to punch through it, never really stopped. It just traded the sword for the rifle and the plate for Kevlar.